Kind of.
like there's a really amazing timeline where everything is amazing. Like I had like a golden castle, and then there's like the one where the game does well enough we can continue and we feel good, and then there's like the dark timeline where everything is shit. And that's where I felt like, even though again I was wrong, that's where I felt like I was looking forward to. So I just like broke down and was like, I can't live in the dark timeline.
Do you want to talk about any of those ideas?
Well, I guess like I said, the one that I would be willing to share is that, and it's like I am not. It's mechanically, I don't really even know where it's going to go, but the idea it would basically be to take the characters from Treasure Adventure World and tell a story about what happened to them 20 years later, and tie that into sort of like what has happened to me for the past 3 years, and some of the feelings I have about going through the process of making a game, equating that to what the character went through in the first game. And
So are we doing one of those like meta games where it's about a game developer making a game? Because that's actually now been done before.
I know. I actually realized that not only that, but the exact way I want to do it has been done before. And that's why I realized I just stopped caring about that. That's actually what I wrote at the top of my page is you are only doing this for you. I'm not designing this for anybody else. So if I may not, like I said, I may not release it. All I know is that suddenly I realized I had a story to tell and characters I could tell it with. And I was kind of excited about doing that. And so I started to list a great my ideas and pages and pages. It just happened just a couple of weeks ago, so it's kind of fresh in my mind. I will just say that if I do make the game, I know the title. It might have a subtitle, but it'll be Treasure Adventureland, and I can give you that. So that's your exclusive.
Treasure Adventure Game, Treasure Adventure World, Treasure Adventure Land. Just promise me none of the characters end up drunk and naked in a ditch.
Wait, well, why not?
I might have to write that down. That's a good idea. I'm gonna steal that.
You go with it. That idea is yours.
It'll be like a little bit more mature in the storytelling, but I still want it to be like silly and the same characters, like I said, but just like maybe everything they did in that game was for naught. Potentially, maybe it's not. Maybe they can go back in time, fix things. I don't know. We'll see.
So making Treasure Adventure Game, Treasure Adventure World, aside from everything else you've told us, what would you say have been the greatest challenges in it, in making specifically Treasure Adventure World?
I mean, See, I would think there were certainly days, like individual days when like everything felt like it was falling apart, and you have those like, I don't know. But those actually, you forget about that later. At least I forgot about that stuff later. I think for me, what I think about is the hardest thing is thinking about how much time I spent sitting in front of that computer working on this one thing that just a handful of people got to experience and care about. You know what I mean? Like sometimes it feels like I spent I could have done something better with that time, and it's hard for me to like reconcile that. So I just try not to think about it. I just think, oh, should I say, okay, whatever.
Jesus, that kind of
Yes, you're-
sounds kind
some
of
of your
soul
best-
destroying.
most of your like 30s were just like sitting in front of this thing. Okay, whatever. Like but I try not to think that too, because I did make a beautiful thing, and I do, even though I've not been able to go back and play it, unfortunately, because it brings back my panic attacks every time I try.
Oh my God, that's terrible.
Yeah, but I know people love it. Some people did find it and love it. It has great reviews on Steam. Once in a while, I do give myself the privilege of reading some of the good reviews. Be like, okay, people liked it. But yeah, I've tried to play it a few times, and every time I get to a part where something's not working or like is like weird, and I'm like, oh crap, I forgot to do that, or there's like a missing thing. I'm like, it like rises back up, like, I should go back and fix it. Oh no, and then I just freak out. So
we
So I
are our
stopped.
own worst critics when it comes to games or any form of
Yeah.
art. I see every bug and every flaw, and Kids of Karendow has been developing it.
Yeah, it's
And
the worst.
it is the worst, but also no game is perfect. No AAA title is perfect. Like if you really want to like look at a lot of titles, you'll have like 3D models running towards a wall or something, and then their arms will be coming to the wall on the other side, and the camera will show that like, well, that's clearly not perfect. That's not what really happens in the real world.
I actually just read.
And we just accept it.
Yeah, I just read a quote from that was on Reddit, just like earlier, from Gabe Newell. He says the same thing about Half-Life. Like he says he can't play him. He can't go back and play him too, for the same reasons, because he just sees all the things. He sees all the compromises instead of seeing like what he created. He just sees, oh, we couldn't do this, we couldn't do that, I wish we could have done that, and so he just like ends up not enjoying it. So he says he doesn't like to play his own games. So,
it's like actors who can't watch themselves on TV.
Mm-hmm.
I can't watch the podcast there. I haven't brought myself to do it.
Oh yeah, I've never gone back to listen to myself.
I'll try to skim through it, like when you send me like kind of like a rough, but yeah, I hate watching.
I edit these things, so I have to listen to every episode, and I've gotten so used to actually listening to myself. I feel like I'm getting better at this, but sometimes I just get worse depending on my mood or how tired I am or something like it,
or how much you drink.
That is a contributing factor. Yes.
Speaking of that, I need to fill mine up a little bit. Just a second.
All right, what do you have there?
He's got Maker's Mark.
Just some bourbon, but
that's some good bourbon there.
Yeah.
This is
does the job.
Elijah Craig.
Oh, there you go.
I got El Dorado rum again.
Nice. I'm glad we're all drinking hard liquor.
We've had to, at least I personally have had to cut back on the booze in the podcast because I tend to ramble. And
same thing. That's why I warned you beforehand. So
but if you go back to like our first two episodes, Gary and I were actually drinking on the podcast, and editing the first episode was such a pain because I rambled so much. I had to like reposition entire segments so it made some sort of like coherent sense, and like
were you drinking while you're editing too? That might help.
No, I wasn't, but in hindsight, maybe
you got to get back in that headspace.
Yeah.
I wonder if there's an element, Blair, where we should actually just leave that stuff in there, because most of the people that were watching this podcast are like friends, and maybe it might be entertaining for them to hear us kind of
see us drunk. Yeah, but the other thing is I would also like to expand our audience, which has not been going so well.
Nah, it's overrated.
Getting a following is overrated. Yes, totally.
Okay, so Stephen, what advice would you give to anyone in the game dev community, or maybe just someone new that's just starting out?
No, yeah, I feel like I've been very negative, and I really shouldn't be, because probably now is one of the best times to get into the industry. There's like so much going on right now. There's so many opportunities too. I mean, so all these small indie teams that, like I said, that inspired me are now full-fledged studios. All these people need talent. But I don't know. I just don't do it the way I did it, I guess. Like, honestly, probably if you're young, going to school and learning the stuff the right way and learning like best practices and all that stuff, so you don't waste a lot of time like I did. If you're ready to start making a game and you're like looking at publishers and stuff, you got to talk to people who've gone through it before. Get on Discord, find game development groups and talk to people who have like gone through it and just ask for advice, because like at this
Or
point,
maybe listen to podcasts like this one.
there you go. Yeah, perfect. Because like there's so many people have gone through this now. You know, we're like an indie like 3.0 at this point, right? Or I don't even know what we want to call it, but
I
like
don't even know where we're at.
yeah, but like there's so much, there's just so much information advice out there. You've got to take advantage of it. Don't be like me and sort of be like willfully ignorant of what it takes to make a commercial title, which is if you're going to do it, if you want to do it as a hobby and just keep doing that, like that's probably, I mean, that's, then you don't have to worry about any of that stuff. You just do it for fun, make a game, and maybe you get lucky and your game gets finished and gets attention. But like, yeah, that's what that's the advice I'm giving myself is treat it like a hobby and make stuff for me and not worry about what other people want from it. So that's where I'm at. But like I said, it's not where people who are listening to this podcast are probably looking at right now, right? So.
So in your background there, you've got the star of Treasure Adventure World and his bird companion.
Mm-hmm.
If you may recall, he appeared in Burgle's Bounty.
That's right.
May you refresh my memory on his name?
the character?
Yeah, it's Peep, right?
So yeah, so Peep is sort of like the given name. The character doesn't really have. We don't really learn the character's name in the game, and actually, that's maybe
like
something that will come
character.
into the sequel. Yeah, new character. But the bird Wida ends up giving him the name Peep. So is like sort of like a nickname. So yeah, that's what we call him. But yeah, it's kind of like it's supposed to be a player insert character. But like I said, in the story that I'm writing for the sequel, potentially we will definitely give him a name, and figure out what's going on.
You don't want to keep Treasure Adventure Land doesn't keep Peep.
Oh, people be involved. The name Peep is going to come into play for sure. But
got it.
Yeah, it's all in there. I got my notebook right here. I'm not going to show you though.
That's fair. I would love to see this series, this franchise continue. I know it's a lot of work, but I think what you've done is incredible. It's a lot of fun. It has a lot of heart, a lot of spirit. It's effectively a Metroidvania game, at least Treasure Adventure World was.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to see you pick it up again. It was such a pleasure meeting you over the last few years and getting to see your process, your game, your creativity. It has been such an honor. If I may say.
Thank you, man. Oh yeah, for sure. And same with you. It's been great. We had a lot of fun.
We will continue to have a lot of fun. This doesn't have to end, man.
That's right. Well, I know. But see, that's the thing is, I feel like I'm like this with everything going on with the pandemic and like everything, like climate change and like all this crap. Like I'm in a really negative space. It's not like destructive negative. Like I've got my little happiness here. I've made my little corner of my world, and I'm happy. But like when I look outside, like try to think about the future and stuff, I definitely get down. Lately, I've been getting layered down about stuff. So it's hard for me to like, think about like positively about like things. But MagFest recently announced they're going to be coming back, and I was like, man, I'm thinking about doing it. I don't know. I'm not sure I'm going to, but
we've applied for Kids of Karendow. I really hope we get in.
Are you guys going to go either way, or what's?
I will go either way.
Okay.
I would love to go as an exhibitor rather than just an attendee.
Sure. Yeah. Have you exhibited there before? I can't remember.
Did you have 2017? We had Burgle's Bounty there.
That's right. Okay. And
then in 2020, just before the pandemic, at the pop-up table, we did show Kids of Karendow for a little while.
Oh, nice. That's right. That was the last time. Probably when the last time they saw you. Actually, was that?
You were there in 2020?
Yeah. Or was it? Was that the no? Wait, 2019? I guess was last year I was there. Did they even do it in 2020? I didn't realize
they did. The very start.
No, that was the one. That was the one. Yeah, I saw you there. 2020. That was.
Then you would have met Gary there.
Yeah, you must have met me. Yeah.
Oh, look at that. Well, you gotta call me a liar now. Sorry, Gary.
Well, I don't remember either. Just because
I totally said
I had a lot of people.
Not it's good. Nice to meet you. You misremember. Yeah.
Well, yeah, it would be awesome for us to be able to show our game at MagFest.
Do you have a hotel lined up and all that?
No, we haven't booked a hotel yet, but we'll get on that once.
Now we're just talking like we're buddies. We gotta get back to podcast mode. Let's talk about game development.
Well, you know what? I like this stuff because the listeners then get to see what it's like being a game developer and all the shit we have to go through.
Oh yeah. Well, Yeah, those, I mean, those things, some of those like conventions are some of the best times, right? I mean, like,
MagFest is a phenomenal
yeah,
convention. Like,
I
it's
mean,
the
it's the best time
friendliest
ever. Like,
people. It
yeah,
is the
it's the
best.
best like 3 days of the year,
Yeah,
for sure.
absolutely.
I've been twice already, and both times, you know, like I went with Blair, and yeah, we just had the best time, like playing indie games and just playing like old arcade games that we used to play when we were kids.
Yeah, it's
Plus,
Yeah,
the
we played a
awesome.
lot
crab
of
the
Mortal
crab cakes are
Kombat.
really good in National Harbor there. So
Yeah, there's some good food, and like,
yeah.
man, the chip tunes like show on Saturday night, and just like there's a great like just a great vibe there all weekend. Yeah, I love that, and I miss it. And you know, I have a hotel booked and everything, so I'm ready to go. But I'm still a little like I'm still a little pandemic nervous, to be honest. Even though I got my
You
vaccine
know
and
what?
everything,
I've accepted. Like, I don't care. I'm vaccinated.
yeah,
Whatever. I'm gonna go. I'm
I,
accepting the risk that comes with it. I want to live my
yeah.
life.
That's how I feel like that's actually where we are kind of are at. I don't think we're ever going to get away. I mean, it's possible that it'll fade away, but I think it could be this year for good anyways. We just got to get used to it being around and being on top of our vaccines, I guess, you know. And,
I'm not a medical professional. I think this thing's endemic, like the flu and the cold.
right.
It's never going away. We'll have to
Yeah.
do what we can to sort of manage it. But
The fact that they're allowing events like this to happen means that everybody knows this is just life. This has to be life as you know. You just have to go back to normal. So, you know, but at the same time, it's hard to pull that, you know what I mean, to pull that plug and finally jump back in. But I'm probably, like I said, I'm like 90% there. So maybe I'll probably see you there. We'll see.
I would love to see you, and Gary would love to see you again, I'm sure.
Yeah, we'll meet again for the very first time.
Yeah, we definitely shall meet again. But we've got one more question for you.
Oh yeah.
And I expect you to answer this honestly, and you should not
Mhm.
stroke Gary or I's ego. Of the New York-based
Mhm.
indie gaming scene,
Mhm.
indie game dev scene,
Mhm.
what has been, and you can't say your own game either, what
Sure.
has been
Oh
your
man, you got
favorite
all the
game?
easy answers. Yeah. So I knew that you were going to answer this question, so I thought about it a little bit. And at first I was like, man, it's tough because, you know, like I feel like most of the games I've played aren't necessarily, again, I go to a lot of these New York shows and I play someone's like early concept, and then I never get around to playing the finished game or seeing where it comes. But then it occurred to me, like, man, even before I like really got into the New York game development scene, one of my favorite games ever was the Blackwell Epiphany series, or the Blackwell Adventure Games by Dave Gilbert, who's a Brooklyn guy. And
I don't know him.
he's not like involved in necessarily in like the same scene we are, but he was involved in the NYU scene. And
Okay.
and so I ended up going down to some of the NYU meetups in Brooklyn and meeting him a couple times. And before I ever met him, before I got into like the New York scene, I played through all like 6 of his games. And they're these point and click adventure games. If you don't know, there's a whole series on Blackwell is the series, and they have different subtitles. And they're just like little point and click adventure games where you're like a detective who can see ghosts, and it all takes place in New York. So there's like all these cool like pixelated like renditions of famous landmarks and around New York City and stuff. And
Maybe we
he's
should
a
try to
real
get
like New
him on the
York.
podcast.
Yeah, man, he's a real like old like New York developer for sure. And even like that, he's like had a lot of success. But like I've played through his games and just can't get enough of them. Like it's like I play one after the other, you know. So yeah, I gotta say him for sure. So yeah.
That's awesome. So I'm going to share my personal favorite, and it may sound really weird because Sam is actually a friend of mine, but it is Zarvat, the game about depressed
Mm-hmm. Oh,
cubes.
yes, I have played that, and that is a solid game for sure.
Yeah, and it hit me so hard because Sam, it's a game about depression, but it's
Mhm.
actually not a game about depression that makes you depressed necessarily. It's a fun sort of adventure action game, like shoot 'em up, and he understands the emotional state of depression as someone who has experienced it on at least when he was younger. Maybe he still does in such a accurate way that he can portray it so well. Like Sam is such a talented artist in general, and his ability to convey the stuff I've always thought is just phenomenal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's also just a really fun game too. Like that.
Yeah,
Like
that too. Yeah, it's very fun. That's
like you
probably the
pick it
wrong
up.
way to.
No, it's cool because it shows like both sides of it, right? Because like, you're right, it's a solid game, and it's like you pick that up and you're instantly having fun. Like you can't not pick it up and have fun with it. So that fact that it's also got that on top of it, yeah, that's what you get that's the double whammy, right? Like, that's like Celeste, right? Like same kind of thing. Like I love games like that that nail both the deep storytelling that makes you think, but then also attach like a fun game to it. Yeah, you got to have both for sure. So.
How about you, Gary?
I would say Kung Fu Kickball.
Mm-hmm.
That is awesome. Well, we'll let Jonah know that you called this game out again on the podcast. And that
It
is a
was
great game.
really
It is
good
really good.
concept.
And I hope I don't get in trouble for saying this, but his publisher has had him add a new character to the game as well. So I may have just spoiled that a little bit.
Oh boy! All right, I was gonna ask for more, but I won't.
Well, that's all that I know, and
Okay.
I'm gonna circle back and ask him if I need to edit that out. But it's not out yet. I don't know when it's coming out.
So I used to live in Rochester, and there's like a scene that's like showing up in Rochester too. And every once in a while, I see their games pop up, and it's like some friends of mine from there that like got into indie games. It's always fun to see like people I used to know at different places I lived are like getting into the indie scene. So they what was the name of their game that they did? I can really remember it now. It was like a roguelike game, but I can't remember. But yeah, I'm still
sticking with people oversaturation. We're screwed.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
No, I love doing this. I could never give it up.
Yeah. You definitely took a different, like, you just like moved right on. Like you released your first game and you're just like, I'm ready for the next challenge. Make it bigger and better. I give you a lot of credit for that, man.
No, there was like we released that in, I think it was April of 2018. No, it was March of 2018.
I think it was like February. Wasn't it?
Maybe, yeah, you're right. It was February of 2018. And by March, I was already doing conceptual artwork for the art style for Kids of Karendow.
That was already like after an emotional roller coaster for you.
And I had an emotional roller coaster from February for that next month.
So we were going through the same thing at the same time, because I released Treasure Adventure World February 2018 too. Didn't we do it same?
We may have done it together. We
That's probably why we didn't realize it, because we were both in our own worlds like so much. We're like,
and I just remember thinking to myself, well, so it was and I don't want to like call out like any of our friends or in the scene, but I might as well because it's fine. Like it's honest. So Computer Lunch, Andrew Garahan, we've had on the podcast. Zelda Singularity, great game. It is a lot of fun.
I thought about actually bringing that one up for my favorite.
They released Mama Hawk around the same time that we released Burgle's Bounty, and there Mama Hawk. There were 2 other games in the playcrafting community that were released this week. So it was Mama Hawk, Burgle's Bounty, and 2 others. 3 of the 4 games were featured on the App Store. Burgle's Bounty was the one that did not. And I remember seeing that on Twitter, and I was thinking to myself, well, fuck that. And it was painful. And well, maybe Andrew will listen to this, maybe he won't. Because Mama Hawk was a great game. I'm not disparaging their game at all. I think I really enjoyed it. But I remember the response that Andrew and Kati had to how well it did when it was featured. And it fell well below their expectations of what they wanted. And here I had a game that was not featured at all. We made about $60 at that point off of it. I think the total thing was $80 at the end. And I realized my mental state was better than theirs. So it was all about managed expectations, I guess.
Well, that's how I feel too, man. Because the same thing, like there's people like ultimately, like if you looked at how much my game made, some people would have found it a success. Not for 6 years of work, probably, but like if they maybe a year of work or whatever. But like that took years and years of putting on sale and everything. But like, it didn't matter. My expectations were different because of maybe they were wrong. Actually, they definitely were wrong. But my expectations were higher, and I had a vision for what my future was going to be like after the game released. And even I had multiple, it's like that, right? Like where the timeline split. Game releases, here are the options. And it ultimately kind of was like the worst. It's like I was like in the bad timeline, like the really bad. That's how I felt to me, like
the multiverse bad timeline kind of.
Like there was a really amazing timeline where everything is amazing. Like I had like a golden castle, and then there's like the one where the game does well enough, we can continue and we feel good. And then there's like the dark timeline where everything is shit. And that's where I felt like, even though again I was wrong, that's where I felt like I was looking forward to. So I just like broke down and was like, I can't live in the dark timeline. This sucks.
So Gary, which timeline is Kids of Karendow going to go into?
It's gonna go into the one where Karendow makes so much money that Disney wants to buy it.
Don't get my expectations that high.
That sounds like the dark timeline to me. No, that sounds like it'd be a pretty sweet deal. Sell anything to Disney.
Yeah, I don't think it's going there, but I mean, it's a great thght, right? So
I know,
would
but
you be?
the thing is, like, I don't think I would want to, even if they offered me a huge check.
Oh, you're right. I'm not sure.
I'd sell it. I'd sell Treasure Adventure World if somebody wrote me a big check today and was like someone cut me $100,000 check and was like, we want the rights on Treasure Adventure World. You got it.
And just like sleep naked in a pile of money.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like that's not like fuck you money, but that's enough where I'd be like, you know what? I feel like it was worth my time to make that world financially.
You know, yeah. Now that Gary mentions that, if someone drove me a truckload of money,
hey, there's new ideas, right? I can make a new character.
There's new ideas, yeah. I guess. What's my price tag on our intellectual property and our ideas, right? I mean, I would actually have to be put in that situation to really know how I'd respond.
Yeah. That's when Chucklefish first came to me and they were like, we want to propose a project. I remember being like, can you just buy me out? Like, cause I didn't really want to make like the start for, you know, like I knew what it was like. I just finished a game. I was like, man, do I really want to jump back into making a remake of a game I just finished? So I think I actually talked to like, can you guys, like, do you have any interest in just like buying the concept and this character? And they're like, no, you got to make it.
Yeah.
So you're right. It's easy to like, you know, to have a concept or an idea to own it, but to make that into a game, that's the hard part, you know.
So circling back, would you be willing to share how well Treasure Adventure World did financially?
I mean, I don't really want to talk numbers. I don't even have them in front of me, but I guess the way I can put it is that like if I had worked in Treasure Adventure World for 2 years, I'd be like, okay, that made enough money for me to feel like it was worth not even. I'd really have to say like a year and a half. You know what I mean? Like plus, honestly, that's not even considering having to pay other people. So no, it's like basically 1 year. If Treasure Adventure took me 1 year to make, I would have felt like okay, I could keep doing this and feel like it's like I could sustain.
You could live.
You know what I'm saying? So that's all. That's how I'll put it. I don't really want to talk about actual numbers. And that was actually after
Treasure Adventure World. The scope of that game was never going to be done in a year unless you had a large.
Yeah, exactly. So, and that was probably after a year of sales. You know what I mean? Like it's not like it sold that instantly. It took going on sale multiple times to make it enough where I was like, okay. But then, you know, as you know, like the tail drops off pretty fast after that, and then unless you like, you know, release DLC or keep it going or whatever, then it's kind of hard to keep making money off something. It makes a little bit, you know, I still get little bits here and there trickles in, but you know, I also had
you get some money on Switch, you know.
Yeah, I know. But the thing is, I had to pay back. There was like I did get some money loaned to me essentially that I had to pay back. I had to, you know, I was owing part of why you know, I had a breakdown was because there were so many people kind of counting on the success too, because the artists, some of them had percentages, you know, that they were getting on the back end. So that's disappointing to like break that news to them. But, you know, so after all that, like, it's like a little bit of, the money that I have is like kind of like there where if I make another project, I can use that to like pay for artists and some music and stuff, you know what I mean? Like a little slush fund, but it's not enough to really do much with, so. Yeah.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, that's just part of the challenges of doing indie games. It's I think it's fair to say that's a shitty reality.
There are downsides to it, yeah, for sure. You know, but like I said, you can take the positive too, and the positives are like, again, like awesome friendships, like cool, great relationships, and like just being part of something that, like, I mean, the indie scene is awesome. Like, and making video games is awesome. Like, everyone loves it.
That's the positive spin we need here.
Oh, yeah.
Because Gary and I have been doing this podcast since April of this year, and of everyone we've talked to, we've had 2 people on that have been financially successful, but we've had 0 people on who said they would give it up and back away and never do it again. So that says a lot.
Right.
Like that's sort of the drive that we have. I think it's more as artists more than anything. to keep this going because it is our passion. It is what we love doing. We love being creative. I think for me, this is a creative outlet is the most important thing. Arguably, right now, aside from my partner, but in my life, like I think I can safely say that this is a creative outlet for me. It is one of the most important things in my life. How about you,
Yeah,
Gary?
I agree with that.
You know, I'm using this opportunity to kind of like get back into music, right? Like when we did Burgle's Bounty, that was probably the first time in a long time that I've made music. You know, like after doing Kids at Karendow back in high school when we did, I pretty much haven't really done anything up until, you know, we started doing Burgle's Bounty, right? So now I get a chance to do like a much bigger soundtrack, something that is most likely to have a much bigger audience than Burgle's Bounty ever did. So that's what excites me about this.
Well, I
And
hope
I'm
we do
also
get
learning a
audience.
lot, like this through this process of trying to do, you know, like something that has, I guess, a lot of different types of music, right? Whereas like Burgle's Bounty, I really focused on having a certain theme throughout the whole soundtrack. Like each song has to kind of sound somewhat similar, right? But with Kids at Karendow, I'm trying to make it a little bit more broader in terms of styles. So I'm really excited about kind of learning that element too. But at the same time, it's really, really challenging.
Well, now we gotta get an audience for Kids of Karendow, so Gary's got an audience for his music. No pressure. All right, Steve, thank you so much for your time.
Dude,
It's
this was
been a
great.
pleasure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure having you on the podcast. Thank you so much for doing this. This is great. We really do want to see Treasure Adventure Land in the not too distant future.
No
Or if there's
promises.
or if there's a Switch port of Treasure Adventure World, that would be awesome too. Just saying.
Yeah,
But
I
it's
know.
I'm
Everyone,
sorry, I would never.
trust me, I'd love to see it on there too. Believe me, but the thing is, I know how much work it takes, so it's
Oh, I know it's a lot
can't
of
fool me.
work.
Can't fool me.
But give it like maybe 3-4 years ago, I was like, "Where's the Mac
Yes.
version?" Now I'm like, "Where's the Switch version?"
Yeah, maybe when I get bored of other stuff, I'll like, all right, time to crank this out. We'll see. This has been great, and it's nice just catching up with you and stuff. And maybe, I guess MagFest. Now it's me to MagFest is the place. So
We
let's
will
do
be
it.
at MagFest regardless of whether or not Kids of Karendow is there, but we will be there.
All right, cool.
All right, peace. Thank you so much, dude.
Yep.
Thanks. Thank you,
Thanks so
Stephen.
much, guys. Yeah.
Thanks for listening to the Phat Games podcast. Please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon so you get notifications of future videos. Now stick around and listen to the music from the town Nach Canegra in Kids of Karendow.